Yeah, there'd be like a point that you would get to where it would most likely either get to the point where you would be institutionalized beyond your will, right?
You figured it out, or you couldn't handle it.
Or you would, probably try to kill yourself or something, right? Or you actually seek internal help. Like you notice that this thing that's happening to you is wrong. It's not normal. So then you would either go to the hospital and get diagnosed with it and then get medication, right? And then just suppress these things. Or you wouldn't go to the doctor, but you wouldn't try to figure it out either because you're scared of it. So you just keep letting it go on and go on and go on until you reach this breaking point of you don't have a possibility to go on by yourself anymore. So you're either gonna probably off yourself or you're going to, basically at that point you do off yourself, right? And the thing is, this is what I never quite understood before, right? When they get to that breaking point and they do try to kill themselves, okay? Just bear with me for a moment, okay? So somebody like Dustin, okay? He tries to commit suicide, but he fails. He doesn't actually fucking fail, okay? There's probably a point where he goes unconscious, or if you OD and you go unconscious, as soon as you're unconscious, you're making a conscious decision every time. A conscious decision in once you're unconscious, you're not in your body, your soul's in the other space, right? And at that point, you have to make a decision. You have to decide, are you going to go back into your body and continue living your life, but continue it seeking, and then eventually when that seeking leads you to healing, right? Or you are going to not go back into your body, you're going to stay in the soul world until you can be replaced into another life. But when you go into that other life, it's not better, okay? Because you can't get out of that soul, that soul has to continually go back into a body until it reaches the point of enlightenment, okay? So, your life is going to be probably worse than the life that you had before, which led you to doing this act in the first place, right? And you have to basically get through all of those lessons and still try to ascend. But at that point, it actually might become better because since your life is so much harder, you're going to get to that accumulation point a lot quicker, okay? Which, you know what I mean? At some point, your soul's probably going to learn, Or you have a choice to work for the lower frequency, which is not bad. It's not Satan. A lower frequency is not bad at all. You want to work for Satan? That's not bad. That's not wrong for your soul, and you can still kind of ascend that way. And you almost have to. You have to have a life like that in order to complete ascension anyway, to be able to not go back into a soul. Does that make sense? So you can work for, say, the lower frequency, or what we would consider Satan, and you could be the person that's supposed to fuck up other people's lives in order to get them to their accumulation points so that they can fulfill their soul contracts. Does that make sense? Isn't that insane? Okay. And the worst part about this whole fucking thing is, even if you don't go into the whole soul thingy, if you just think about the whole accumulation point, right? And going unconscious and then so on and so forth, scientists have already figured this out. They've already figured this process out. They already have videos and documentation about this entire fucking process that a person goes through. And it's always the same. It just depends on the certain person if they're going to get to these accumulation points at the time frame that's normal, Or if their soul is going to take a little bit longer and say their awakening date isn't in the 30s like it's supposed to, it's in the 40s. Okay?
Yeah.
Isn't that insane?
Yeah.
And then there's even another fucking way to look at this. Okay? So if you think of I don't know who we'd give an example of, but we'll just say Beth would show up to work and not understand that you have to be on time, okay? And so she has to be on time. Those are the rules, and you have to write her up 3 times, and then after the 3rd time, she gets on her final, and then after the final, she gets fired. But every time she pitches a fit and doesn't understand why these consequences have to happen, right? Even though this lady is 25 years old. This person should realize, even at the age of 15, that if you break a rule, there's a consequence. No matter what. It just depends on what the consequence is for whatever law or rule or law that you broke. Okay? So we would understand that person should already know that by age 15. Okay? But she's 25 and she doesn't know it yet. So it's just her level of understanding from what she's been made to do up until this point. So like you said, these kids are spoiled these days and they don't think they have to fucking work, right? But we all know that it's, something that you do in life. You work to get your money, and there's, things you have to do in order to show up to that work and continue having that job. So it's the same thing with the actual person and that accumulation point. And the worst part is these scientists and stuff, these psychologists and stuff have already figured out the exact pattern and at what ages and the different things that a person would go through at those ages to even lead up to that accumulation point. And at any time they say, no matter what, you will go through something. It just depends on what that something is for you that makes you reach that. And the other thing that goes along with this is you usually reach these accumulation points when you have parents who never broke their generational curses, right? So when you think of a generational curse, you might think somebody hexed you or whatever, but it could simply be I was yelled at by my mother, okay?
Yeah.
And her yelling at me would always get me even more out of sorts. And then she would get even more frustrated because then the original thing that she was yelling about me at was getting worse, right?
Are we getting food before we...
Whatever you want to do.
Liam, are you hungry?
And never did that mom stop to think that maybe my daughter keeps telling me that when I yell at her, it makes her body panic and things get worse, right? So your daughter's obviously not learning that way, but the mom's not stopping it either. So even though the daughter hated being yelled at when she was a kid, she typically will grow up and yell at her kid, right? And then the process just keeps going over and over again.
That makes sense.
So, I don't know. I could keep going, but...